Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show. Before I get on out of here, I had to talk about a story that's very, very important. And albeit indirectly, it involves Caitlyn Clark.
Stephen A. Smith just set fire to the WNBA conversation, and this time the explosion could permanently reshape women's professional basketball. At the exact moment photos leaked of Caitlyn Clark inside Nike headquarters in Oregon, finalizing what may become the most powerful signature deal the league has ever seen, the WNBA Players Association made a stunning move. They chose to walk away from their current labor agreement. On the surface, it feels strategic, bold, even overdue. But according to Stephen A., this isn't confidence, it's frustration boiling over. The timing raises eyebrows for a reason. While the league's most marketable star is locking in generational wealth on her own terms, the rest of the players are racing to renegotiate the system to claim value she already generated. Sources say tensions behind closed doors are boiling, and the passive aggression fans noticed all season is about to become open warfare in the boardroom. This isn't just about money. It's about power, pride, and who truly drives this league forward. Now the stakes explode. The WNBA Players Association officially detonated the most aggressive option available when it chose to opt out of its collective bargaining agreement 2 years ahead of schedule. In business terms, this isn't leverage, it's escalation. This move signals that the players aren't interested in small concessions or symbolic victories. They are demanding a full structural reset of how money flows through the league. To the casual fan, this might look like confidence fueled by sold-out arenas and record ratings. But underneath that optimism is a gamble built on an assumption that the recent surge in popularity is permanent. The players looked at a single historic season and decided it justified rewriting decades of financial reality overnight. That's where the danger begins. For most of its existence, the WNBA has not been a profitable enterprise. The league survived through subsidies, patience, and long-term vision from the NBA. Reports of annual losses hovering near $50 million weren't anomalies, they were the norm. What changed recently wasn't an organic league-wide awakening. It was the arrival of a phenomenon. One rookie class altered television numbers, merchandise sales, and cultural relevance almost instantly. And even within that class, one name drove the conversation, the clicks, and the cash. The union's timing ignores that reality and instead treats this moment as overdue compensation for years of underappreciated labor. Emotionally, that argument resonates. Financially, it's shaky. By opting out now, the players have effectively put ownership in a corner and pointed to the momentum as proof the money exists. They are threatening a work stoppage if demands aren't met immediately. That threat assumes fans are loyal to the league itself, not the star powering its visibility. It also assumes owners fear losing momentum more than absorbing short-term damage. History suggests billionaires rarely blink first. This is a high-stakes game of chicken rooted more in frustration than leverage. While union lawyers were drafting demands and preparing for public battles, Caitlyn Clark was operating in a completely different arena. Her recent appearance at Nike World headquarters wasn't symbolic. It was strategic. She wasn't there to negotiate on behalf of the league or advocate for collective benefit. She was there building her own empire. Reports indicate she is deeply involved in the design process for her signature shoe and apparel pipeline. This isn't endorsement theater. It's ownership of brand identity. Clark isn't waiting for a new CBA to define her worth. She's monetizing her value directly through the global marketplace. That contrast exposes the core fracture inside the WNBA. On one side is a player creating independent economic gravity. On the other is a collective trying to capture the spillover. The rumored 8-year Nike deal worth tens of millions dwarfs Clark's league salary and renders labor negotiations almost irrelevant to her future. This creates an uncomfortable visual. The league is fighting for slices while she controls the oven. That reality fuels resentment because it forces a conversation about merit, market demand, and unequal impact. Stephen A. Smith didn't soften his assessment when addressing this divide. He articulated what many fans have been whispering all season. There is anger simmering beneath the surface of the league, and it isn't subtle. He highlighted the contradiction of players criticizing Clark on the court and in media spaces while simultaneously using her popularity as justification for financial demands. You can't isolate the engine driving growth and still expect the machine to run. Treating the league's biggest draw like an outsider while cashing checks created by her presence is a contradiction the public sees clearly. Smith argued that veterans are misreading their leverage. They believe the league's success belongs equally to everyone who contributed over the years. While foundational work matters, markets reward momentum, not memory. Owners, networks, and sponsors understand this distinction. The disconnect lies with players who view fairness as equal distribution rather than proportional impact. That mindset turns admiration into envy and negotiation into confrontation. And if pushed too far, public sympathy evaporates fast. To understand why this negotiation is headed toward hostility, you have to revisit the season that created these fault lines. The jealousy narrative didn't emerge from thin air. It unfolded in real time, broadcast weekly. Fans watched hard fouls that crossed competitive lines. They heard dismissive commentary from established voices that minimized records and reframed achievements. What should have been a celebration of growth often looked like resistance to change. For new fans drawn in by Clark, the product felt conflicted. The league didn't just struggle with exposure, it struggled with self-acceptance. Those fans tuned in expecting excellence and rivalry. Instead, many perceived hostility toward the very player responsible for their interest. That perception matters. In sports, perception drives loyalty, and loyalty drives revenue. When the same players associated with that negative energy now demand raises based on the influx of those fans, the contradiction becomes unavoidable. It's not about deserving respect. It's about recognizing cause and effect. Stephen A. Smith's argument cuts at the heart of that paradox. You can't antagonize the source of growth and still expect to benefit from it. The rage he describes stems from the realization that effort alone doesn't guarantee reward. Markets don't care about tenure or sacrifice. They care about attention and demand. The superstar chosen by the audience wasn't selected by committee. She emerged organically. And that emergence disrupted a hierarchy built on seniority rather than impact. AS negotiation details leaked. The scope of the players' demands raised eyebrows. This wasn't incremental progress. This was a proposed overhaul. Equity stakes in the league. Massive salary cap increases. Universal charter flights. Expanded benefits across the board. On paper, these demands resemble what established leagues provide. In practice, they assume revenue stability the WNBA hasn't yet proven. The league's historical dependence on NBA support complicates every request. You can't distribute profits that don't consistently exist. The players are betting that recent ratings represent a new baseline. They're projecting permanence onto a surge. But sports history is littered with peaks followed by regression. If casual fans disengage due to labor disputes or internal drama, the numbers collapse quickly. That risk isn't theoretical. It's documented. The leaked demands reveal a disconnect between emotional entitlement and financial reality. Wanting rewards without acknowledging their source creates instability. This brings us to the most uncomfortable truth. The league's financial future hinges on a player many resent. That dynamic is unprecedented at this scale. Every public shot taken at Clark undermines the brand fueling negotiation power. Stephen A. Smith framed it bluntly. Superstar-driven leagues protect their assets. They compete fiercely without cannibalizing visibility. In the NBA, transcendent figures elevate everyone. Resistance to that role only shrinks the pie. The rhetoric of collective building sounds noble, but markets aren't sentimental. A 10-year veteran with accolades but limited draw cannot command the same economic weight as a rookie filling arenas nationwide. Accepting that reality is painful. That pain fuels demands framed as justice but driven by insecurity. Attempting to legislate equality in an unequal market rarely ends well. Whispers of a lockout are no longer hypothetical. If ownership concludes the demands outpace revenue, the doors can close. The catastrophe of halting play at peak relevance would undo years of progress overnight. Executives know this risk. Players are betting owners fear it more. That's a dangerous assumption when leverage is uneven. The leverage gap becomes clearer when you examine who survives a shutdown. Brand deals belong to players, not leagues. Caitlyn Clark's Nike partnership isn't contingent on tip-off schedules. Her income stream doesn't dry up if games stop. That insulation changes everything. Rank-and-file players don't share that security. A lockout hurts them immediately. By opting out early, the union has entered a standoff with owners who can afford patience. Historically, patience wins. This is why analysts across sports media are baffled. Commentators who understand momentum see a league flirting with self-sabotage. The consensus isn't anti-player. It's pro-reality. The WNBA finally held a winning ticket and chose to test its durability. When news of the opt-out broke, public reaction skewed skeptical. Packed arenas create the illusion of overflowing cash. Insiders know margins remain thin. The new media deals haven't fully materialized. The money players are demanding hasn't fully arrived. Social media amplifies the disconnect. Constant messaging about value inflates expectations. Fans hear entitlement without context. Owners see obligations without guarantees. The pressure cooker intensifies. Everyone wants to win the narrative war, but narratives don't balance books. The image of Clark at Nike headquarters captures the entire saga perfectly. While the union prepares for public confrontation, she's building product lines and legacy. Nike isn't betting on league stability. They're betting on individual appeal. That distinction is everything. If the league stumbles, Clark's brand survives. She has transcended institutional dependence faster than anyone anticipated. Other players haven't. They need infrastructure, schedules, and broadcast windows. Destroying that platform out of spite or miscalculation would be catastrophic. The sophistication gap is glaring. Clark operates as a global icon. The union negotiates like a local guild. Stephen A. Smith's warning isn't anti-labor. It's anti-delusion. Letting resentment guide strategy risks crashing the vehicle everyone relies on. As negotiations loom, leaks will intensify. Accusations will fly. The rage narrative will dominate headlines. The wild card remains Clark herself. Does she engage or stay silent? Given her treatment, silence may be rational. Her voice holds unmatched power, but power unused is still power. If she opts out of the fight emotionally, the union loses its strongest leverage. The next months will define the league's trajectory. This is a high-stakes poker game with borrowed chips. The players want superstar pay. The market says there is one superstar driving demand. Failing to reconcile that truth risks fumbling the biggest opportunity the sport has ever seen. The question isn't fairness. It's awareness. And whether the league can separate ego from economics before momentum turns into memory. So, where does this leave the WNBA now? The clock is already running, and the next move matters more than any press conference. The current deal may still exist on paper, but the real battle has already begun behind closed doors. Leaks will surface, narratives will harden, and both sides will rush to control public opinion. Fans will hear about greedy owners, reckless players, and impossible demands, all while the season hangs in the balance. The center of it all is Caitlyn Clark, whether she wants that role or not. Every decision she makes, or refuses to make, shifts leverage in ways no committee vote ever could. If she speaks, she changes the conversation instantly. If she stays silent, she sends a message just as loud. That is the power gap this standoff has exposed. The league is gambling that momentum will save it. The players are gambling that urgency will force a payout. And the owners are gambling that patience will break the union first. History suggests only one of those bets usually pays off. What happens next will define whether this moment becomes a turning point or a cautionary tale. The WNBA finally has the world watching. The question is whether it can handle the spotlight without tearing itself apart. This isn't just about salaries anymore. It's about ego, timing, and understanding where real power comes from. Because once momentum is lost, it rarely comes back. And the next move could change everything.